if the Trump administration reached out and doing something on the education side with schooling, would you participate?
Oh, of course. Okay. And I've already reached out on the mental health side and a couple of things.
Oh, I bet, because I know you got a relationship with Bobby, and you know, and I think he's phenomenal at what he does, and I'm sure as an independent yourself, you're probably interested to see what directions he's going to take. You know, the part with Bobby, since we're here. So I remember interviewing, it's an event in 2019. I have Kobe Bryant, the late Kobe Bryant, at this event. I have President Bush at this event. We're at the Mirage. Billy Beane is there from Moneyball. I don't know if you've seen the movie Moneyball.
Yes,
I love Billy. I brought him 3 times. And I had Jordan Peterson there. I'm interviewing Jordan Peterson. And while I'm sitting there going through it, I'm like, this guy's going through something. He's in pain. Something's bothering him. He just looked different. Right after the interview was done, he disappeared. This is when he went to Russia. I don't know if you were following the story or not. He openly talked about it himself, Michaela, his daughter. And then he talked about the fact that, you know, there's certain medication, lorazepam, whatever it was, that, you know, he went through. He's not alone. A lot of people have gone through that, right? This direction where we're at, my oldest son, when we were in Dallas, you know, his teacher says, I need you to go have your kid see this therapist because I think your son has something. I'm like, what? Yeah. Okay. I actually want to do it to see what you want my son to do. So to me, it became a project. Let's go through it. My son, my oldest son's just like me. He's, you know, curious, different, you know, can't stop talking, reading. He's always like all over the place. So I take him to the doctor. And you know what? ADHD, you may want to consider taking this medication. We can do this. We can do that. I'm like, yeah, that's where it stops, guys. We're good. We got to go home. Thank you so much. He's okay.
Yeah.
This kid's going to be okay.
Yeah.
But for a guy like me, I'm in the space. I'm around a lot of people. I'm talking to guys who are, you know, using their resources where you can borrow and you're reading. To the average person with this direction we're going, but hey, you got a problem? Take this pill. Take this, bipolar pill. Take this, whatever this pill is, Prozac. Take this, Zoloft, all this stuff. I have an insurance company. A lot of guys are on a lot of stuff. I had no idea this many medication people are taking, right? How do we get there, and what's the solution for it long term?
Well, I think we got there by trying to get efficient with the process of managing human beings that aren't managing through their life. We went to therapists originally, and then psychiatrists, not psychologists, became driven by basically the pharma business. I mean, it's pretty obvious what's there now. So, for example, on the cover of Newsweek 2 years ago, there's an article. And the cover, I actually brought it here just in case you hadn't seen it. See, I think I have it in here anyway. I threw it in here. But the cover of it talks about how SSRIs, which is the drugs that we use for depression, they don't work. Oh, maybe I left it on the helicopter. It says on the cover, 42 million Americans doing it, and meta-studies now show that a sugar pill is just as effective as SSRIs, and they don't have the downsides.
Is this one?
Yep. You
Hooked
got it
on
right
Hype.
Hooked on Hype.
Yeah.
There you go. What does it say there? Antidepressants work no better than sugar pills for most of the 43 million Americans who take them. We know that as a fact now. It's 2 years later, and we're still giving this mass number of human beings on this earth these drugs that don't change anything. They just basically make them so they're numb. So remember I talked to you about those 3 decisions, what you focus on? Let's do something with your audience that's practical for them right now, because we're talking these highfalutin ideas. Let's do something pragmatic. So we don't experience life. We experience life we focus on. Meaning what's wrong is always available, so is what's right. Whatever you focus on, you feel, even if it's not true. If you imagine something horrible is going to happen, you feel it. You're in your body, right? So focus equals feeling. Focus equals reality to the individual, even though it's no reality in actuality. We decide, every moment we're deciding what to focus on, but most of us don't decide consciously. It's based on habit. So we're not in control. But we can consciously choose what to focus on. When we decide what to focus on, our brain has to come up with a meaning, like we said, the end or the beginning. Loving me or dissing me, whatever the case may be. And that affects your emotions, which decides the third decision, what am I going to do? But let's start with focus. Let's take 3 patterns of focus for your audience. If I asked you, and I think I know with you, it would be pretty simple, but which of these do you tend to spend more time in? Do you tend to focus more on what you have or what's missing?
What's missing?
That's right. And when I ask most audiences that I have 20,000 people in the stadium, the majority of them are achievers, and the majority of them focus on what's missing. Now, since during COVID, almost everybody was focused on what's missing because many things were taken from them. So now I want you to think about this. If you constantly focus on what's missing, it'll make you keep pushing, but it's very hard to sustain deep levels of happiness because you're all focused on what's missing. And so you're an overachiever, so you can still stack those enough to still feel good. But for most people, they go, it's missing. I'm missing the love of my life. I'm missing this. I'm missing that. That puts them in a state of frustration, anger, sadness, or ultimately depression. Now let's take a second one. Do you tend to focus more? I'm sure I know what the answer on this one is. More on what you can or can't control. All of us focus on both things, right? But which one do you focus more on, can or can't control?
For the average person, I get what you're saying. For me, at this phase of my life, if I was 35, when I was 2013 and 2014, Tony, I will tell you, anxiety and panic was at the highest level. We had our second kid. I'm in church. I'm going out because I can't control my chest. My palms are sweating. And I'm constantly worried. One day I'm coming back from a tour. Two of my guys are going through a mess in the company. I'm about to lose the whole thing. This has got to be 2013. And one night I go to ER. It's 2 o'clock in the morning. My dad comes. He says, I think my son's having a heart attack. I go to ER. And I'm like, look, what the hell is going on in my body? He says, dude, your body is exhausted. You haven't drank any water. What have you been doing? I've been on a 30-day tour. Well, listen, you haven't gotten sleep. I was at 2 or 3 hours because we're going city. I'm trying to grow the business. But the anxiety was of, man, I can't control this, all this other stuff. And then I went through the phase of finding it for myself. But to the average person, we focus on what we don't have. To the average person, we focus on what I have no control over.
That's right.
President, what am I going to do? Election, taxes, oh my God, drones, what's going on over here? For sure. I agree.
And you know what that produces? Anxiety, fear, frustration,
level. Yes.
High stress, anger, right?
Yep.
Third question, and by the way, most people in my events tend to focus on what they can control 100%. That's why they come.
Right.
They come because they want to take control. They want more skills.
No
They're
question.
hungry to driven,
Yes.
right? But the average person, I can't control. And that's why so many people, we have so much mental health problems because kids now think the whole world's going to end in 12 years because the ecology is going to fall apart, which is a total lie.
Right.
We all know it's a lie. But when you believe that, I don't even want to have a kid. I can't do anything. Total anxiety. So now how do you treat that? Well, I'll give you one more. Do you tend to focus on the past, the present, or the future? We all do all three. Where do you spend more time?
For me?
Yes.
Okay, I'd like to be present, but I will tell you, I'm a future guy.
I know.
Yeah.
And that makes you successful because you can anticipate. Most achievers focus on the future. The happiest people focus on the present.
I agree.
Right?
I totally agree.
So the key is flexibility.
Right.
If you focus on the past, you can't change it. So that's, unless you're focused on something wonderful, which most people don't, that's not where you want to spend your time. So watch this. I'll ask a room of 20,000 people, stadium, and I'll say, okay, how many of you in this room, we've gone through these three, how many know somebody that takes antidepressants and they're still depressed? 90% of the room raises their hand. Do you know somebody who does that?
Many.
How is that possible? Because the drug does not change anything. All it does is numb you, and it has massive side effects, including suicidal thoughts. On the other hand, what is really going on? What's going on is they're constantly focused on what they can't control. They're constantly focused on what's missing. They tend to focus more on the past or a future that they think they can't control. And it puts them there. Until you change the cause, that doesn't go away. So watch this. During COVID, we had the most expansive mental health challenges ever. We had the most overdoses, the most abuse of alcohol and drugs that we've ever seen in the history of this country. People were trapped. They didn't know what to do. They had the worst thoughts. Everything seemed like it's going to be forever, and they're there. Stanford comes to me and says, we had 2 professors that came through your Date with Destiny program. Both were clinically depressed. And now they don't have any symptoms of depression. They're not taking any drugs. How is this possible? So I start to explain what we do, where people, they change their own values, rules. They change it so that it's easy to feel good, hard to feel bad, where they're in control instead of reacting to the environment, right? It's a 6-day immersion process that changes your conditioning. You do it. I don't tell you what to do. You do it. I show you how. And they go, well, do you have any data on the results of this? I said, well, yeah, I got hundreds of thousands of graduates and letters. And they said, no, like scientific data. I said, no, but if you want to do a study, let's do it. They said, we'd love to study depression. I said, great. I said, tell me what the base is. Like right now, current treatments, what's the average? Well, meta-studies, you won't believe this. Meta-studies, Patrick, show that 60% of the people that get treatment with drugs and or therapy, 60% make zero improvement for depression. 40% improve. The average improvement, according to meta-studies, is 50%. So they're half as depressed as they were. They still feel terrible. Now, some people get well, but very few. Most stay on medication for years and years and years, and side effects of that. I said, that'd be easy to beat with a placebo, in my opinion. And he goes, yeah, maybe right. I said, I guarantee we'll build that. I say, I guarantee you'll do the measurement. And I said, but what's the best that's ever happened? What's the best result in the history of psychiatry? It was at Johns Hopkins 6 years ago. They took people and put them for 30 days on psilocybin, magic mushrooms, and cognitive therapy. I said, 30 days of mushrooms and therapy. I mean, you got to get a change out of that. They said, Tony, it's the most powerful change we've ever seen. 6 weeks after the month of this treatment, 54% of the people had no symptoms whatsoever, depression. There's nothing like it in the history of psychiatry. I said, our target is to beat that. I think we will, but that sounds probably like hyperbole when you hear it, but I think you'll see we're changing the cause, so it should be much better than that. Let's see. They set up the study. They mirrored the example of the opposite group like they did for the group in Johns Hopkins. We did 6 days, no drugs, no individual therapy. And at the end, they followed up with them 6 weeks later. 93% of the people had 0 symptoms whatsoever of depression. The 7% were left made significant improvements, and 17% came in with suicidal ideation, and not one person had suicidal ideation at the end of 6 days. That's it. They followed up a year later. 71% decrease in negative emotions, 52% increase in positive emotions. Stanford's saying now they have 2 other studies they're doing now, a year-long study on engagement in business, because engagement equals EBITDA, as you know, right? So the changes that you can make are amazing. Now, how do we make those changes? They're like, how is this possible? They followed me for 3 years. They put this device on me, it's a $50,000 device that measures everything. They took my blood at every break. They took my saliva. They checked your hormonal balance. And here's what they found. They've done this with Tom Brady, our mutual friend. They've done it with some of the top teams that win over and over again, like the Lightning, the hockey team. And they measured something and found something interesting. The teams that win again and again are able to deal with stress in a unique way because Tom Brady's down by 10 points. It's the 4th quarter of the Super Bowl, and he comes back to win. And 2 minutes left. How does he do it? His testosterone surges to just gigantic levels. Now, testosterone gives you unbelievable focus and drive, and it makes you remember everything. If I said, where were you on 9/11? Everyone remembers where they were. 8/11, you don't remember anything. The difference is information without emotion is not maintained. But that level of intensity, you retain it. That's why a year later, people are still shifted. But secondly, usually when you get testosterone, you get a lot of cortisol. That's the stress hormone. For these people, their testosterone surges, the cortisol drops through the floor. So all they have is this centered, focused power that doesn't hold them back. Every time I get on stage, I go into that biochemical, they call it the championship biochemistry. But here's what's really interesting. Then they started measuring my audience. They did it live. And then when COVID happened, imagine this. My whole thing is doing events all over the earth, Australia, London, everywhere we go, stadiums full of people. And in March of 2020, the governor of California calls and says, guess what? Sorry, you can put 100 people in the stadium. I'm like, no. 14,000 people. No. All right, we're going to Vegas. They'll never shut down Vegas. A week before Vegas, they shut down Vegas. Wow. We're going to Texas. The governor says he's not going to bend. Texas is its own country. 2 weeks out of that, they moved 14,000 people. Shut it down.
Wow.
We're going to do this in movie theaters. They'll let us put 10 people in a movie theater. We'll get 14 at a movie theaters. Then go locally. They'll have a big screen, big speakers, all this stuff. And they shut down the movie theaters. So I was like, how am I going to help people? It's like, I'm going to have to do something I never thought would be possible. I'm going to do this in their homes. I'm used to a stadium, rock and roll. We go 12 hours and people wouldn't sit for a 3-hour movie and they're out of their mind. Well, people that got dragged, they're out of their mind. How do I do that in their house? How do I do that if we're starting here at 10 a.m.
right
in Palm Beach and I'm projecting and I got 193 countries, which is how we do it now. And I got guys in Australia that it's already midnight and they're going to go from midnight to 1 in the afternoon for 4 days and nights. And we lose 2% of the people on average, to give you an idea. I didn't believe that was possible. But they measured the people overseas. I've created this way to do it, a studio. I can tell you the details anytime you want. But the bottom line is the engagement is so large, they sent people around the world and did their blood in real time, did their saliva, and they all, it looks like music. They start out and then they start mirroring me. Mirror neurons? They literally go into the same state of testosterone and the drop off of cortisol, and that's why it sticks. It's a change in the conditioning in their nervous system. It's not just thoughts they thought, and that's why it's retained a year later with continued impact. So we have a scientific process. I've always known what it is, but now science is duplicating it. Now here's what's interesting. That study was published last year in the Journal of Psychiatry, one of the top journals around. How many phone calls do you think I've gotten from anybody in that community?
How many?
Zero.
Not interested.
Not a single one.
There's no profit in it.
But now with Bobby, and Bobby gets so misaligned, I'm sure you know. I mean, Bobby just wants to have free food that doesn't have chemicals that create cancer. He wants to make sure that if you're going to have a vaccine, that it's actually tested and safe. So, I helped connect Bobby. I was one of the people that got him with Trump because I'm an independent. I knew he wasn't going to win. He actually wanted me to be his VP. We spent the first month before anybody else, and I didn't choose to go that route because I don't want to be on one side or the other. I've always been to help people on both sides.
You have no interest.
I had interest. We spent a month talking about it, but in the end, I felt like it would make me one side or the other. I want to serve everyone. So I don't want to be a politician.
In the future, you're not touching politics.
I doubt it.
Okay.
I won't shut out anything, no, because you might change your opinion about something. But right now, that doesn't feel like it. But I want to support people on both sides of the aisle, like I always have, the right people on both sides of the aisle. So I connected him because the other side wasn't open. So it's like, if this guy wins.
You spoke to the other side as well.
I didn't speak to him. He went and spoke to him. He tried to. He went to them and.
Well, you invited both of them, right? I think you did invite.
Yes, I did invite both of them to use my facilities.
Right, to use the facility. I remember. You made a video about it, I think.
Yeah.
Right.
But the bottom line is, I'm not here to tell people who to vote for. I didn't say here's who you should vote for. I brought both people.
It's never been your style.
It's just not. I'm not some celebrity telling you what to do. I'm here for you to do what's right. Vote. And for you to educate yourself. And I'll do anything I can so you understand both sides on your terms, not my terms, right? But I brought him together with Bobby because Trump really wanted to make a difference in this area. I mean, he made it clear he did. And so now he is. And now you got Bhattacharya at NIH, and you got Dr. Martin McCary, who's at FDA. I mean, and Dr. Oz, who's my friend as well, who's going to run Medicare and Medicaid. You have all the guys that were being attacked who were telling the truth are now going to be in charge. So I think we're going to see a real shift.
I'm excited about it, and I think it's the right guy. But how long have you had? You said you made the introduction of Trump to Bobby. How long have you known Trump?
Actually, I didn't. Tucker Carlson introduced them. They were working on a deal.
Got it.
And then it got blown up. And it got blown up because Trump was having a conversation with Bobby, and it was being recorded unbeknownst to Bobby.
I remember that.
And then it got released. And then so the thing blew up. And so I called up and said, listen, you got to call Trump and tell him it was his son who did it. His son was having challenges with alcohol at the time. And I said, I know you don't want to throw your son to the Trump, so trust.
You told Bobby. So that was a tough time, by the way.
No, I know it was because he was literally at the convention going to make a deal, and Trump didn't show up.
Do you remember this? I remember this vividly.
Yeah, I don't know if we share all the details of this to give you an idea.
But the
bottom line is, Bobby, what I'm trying to get is Bobby was sincere, but Bobby cares so much about his son, he'd walk away from it. And I said, call Trump and trust him as a father and say, look, I'm not going to throw my son into this.
I think that's the right move.
And then whether he says anything or not. So he put it together, and then they ran into other challenges. And so I'm one of the members of the team that try to help put them together. So I'm really happy because I don't have to be a politician. I can just help get people in there that really care. How long have you known Trump?
Do you and Trump go way back or no?
I've known him for about 25 years. He's not like my buddy. I didn't hang out with him or anything.
Has he been to an event or no?
Oh, yeah, and he's spoken in my events. I gave him his first big event. He came in in Philadelphia, I think it was in Philadelphia. He thought he was coming to speak to 400 people. And I thought it was a big group. And we had 12,000 people. And he couldn't believe it. It was the first big crowd he did. And I wrote about it in his book, actually. And it's like the first time. Now that's like his basic fundamental thing to doing. He loves it the most. But I watched him. His big piece of advice there was get a prenup. That was the first piece of advice he gave when he got up in front of the
He would say something like that. Well, that's good. That's cool to hear. Nowadays, more than ever, the brand you wear reflects and represents who you are. So for us, if you wear a Future Looks Bright hat, or Valuetainment gear, you're telling the world, I'm optimistic. I'm excited about what's going to be happening, but you're a free thinker. You question things. You like debate. And by the way, last year, 120,000 people got a piece of Future Looks Bright gear with Valuetainment. We have so many new things. The cufflinks are here. New Future Looks Bright. This is my favorite, the green one. Just yesterday, somebody placed an order for 100 of these. If you watch the PBD podcast, you got a bunch to choose from. White ones, black ones. If you smoke cigars and you come to our cigar lounge, we have this high quality lighter cutter and a holder for the cigars. We got sweaters with the Valuetainment logo on it. We got mugs. We got a bunch of different things. But if you believe the future looks bright, if you follow our content and what we represent with Valuetainment, with PBD Podcast, go to vtmerch.com. And by the way, if you order right now, there's going to be a special VT gift inside just for you. So again, go to vtmerch.com, place your order, tell the world that you believe the future looks bright. If you enjoyed this video, you want to watch more videos like this, click here. And if you want to watch the entire podcast, click here.